You were born into a world without light. This was not a metaphor for a hard life. It was a literal truth. For your people, for everyone, the universe was black. The stars were gone. The sun was a memory from ancient history. Humanity lived in the deep dark between galaxies. A cold, quiet place. Your eyes were open, but they saw nothing. Just like everyone else. You learned to navigate by touch and sound. You felt the vibration of the station's deck plates. You heard the whisper of the air recyclers. These were the constants of your life. The walls of your home. The faces of your family. You knew them by the warmth of their skin. You knew them by the rhythm of their breathing. But you had a secret. A sense no one else possessed. The void was not silent to you. It was not empty. It sang. You heard a constant, gentle hum, a symphony of quiet power filling the space between spaces. It was the music of gravity, the slow dance of dark matter, the echo of creation itself. This song was your real sight. You could feel the immense, slow turning of your home station. You could sense the shape of a freighter docking, not by its noise, but by its wake in the universal song. It was a pressure, a subtle shift in the music. You learned to read these changes. They were your language, your vision in a world of total blackness. The doctors had a name for it, auditory gravitic synesthesia, a fancy way of saying your brain was wired wrong, or perhaps wired right for the first time in generations. They said you were interpreting background radiation as sound, a harmless, if strange, condition. They gave you medication to make the noise go away. You pretended to take it. You learned to keep your secret safe. How could you explain it to them? How could you describe the beauty of the void song? It was like trying to describe color to a person born without eyes. It was impossible. So you listened alone. You learned to read the dark. Every object with mass had its own note. A tiny moonlet was a high, thin whistle. A gas giant was a deep, resonant hum. Your station, New Canaan, was a complex chord, a beautiful harmony of metal, water, and life. You could feel every one of its 50,000 souls, each a tiny, sparkling grace note in the grand composition. You spent your cycles in the observatory dome, not for the view, there was none. You went for the silence. Up there, the station's internal noises were faintest. The great song of the void was clearest. You would lie on the cold floor for hours. You would just listen, letting the star-born music wash over you. It was the only peace you ever knew. A strange vibration echoed in the deep black. It was not a note you had ever heard before. It was a dissonance, a sharp, ugly sound that cut through the void's harmony. It made the hairs on your arms stand up. It was wrong. A screeching, grating wrongness in the perfect music of space. You are the only one who can hear it coming. You sat up in the observatory, your heart hammered against your ribs. The sound was distant, so very far away. But it was growing, a slow, terrifying crescendo. It was not the song of a star, or a planet, or anything natural. It was a sound of intent, a sound of something moving with purpose. You tried to describe it to your parents. You called it a buzz, a horrible, angry buzz. They exchanged worried glances. They thought your condition was getting worse. They scheduled another doctor's appointment. You tried to tell the station controllers. They politely logged your report. Unverified auditory phenomenon. They filed it and forgot it. No one listened. Why would they? You were just a child with a strange affliction of the mind. They trusted their instruments. Their sensors saw nothing. Their scopes showed only the familiar, empty black. The void was behaving as it always had. Calm, quiet, safe. But you knew better. The song did not lie. The wrong note grew louder in your mind. It was a jagged edge tearing through the smooth fabric of space. It scraped against your senses. It felt like nails on a chalkboard the size of a solar system. You felt a cold dread pool in your stomach. Days turned into weeks. The sound became a constant presence, a background hum of pure menace. It was still distant, but it was unwavering. It was coming from the direction of the Kepler Epsilon system. A small colony, a listening post named Terminus. You could feel its tiny, faint chord in the distance, a fragile note of human life. The wrong note was getting closer to it. You could feel the two sounds converging. The angry buzz was moving toward the small, hopeful chord. You pleaded with anyone who would listen. You drew pictures of the sound. You tried to mimic its awful tone. They gave you sedatives. They told you to rest. They told you it was all in your head. You knew they were wrong. You felt it in your bones. The universe was singing a warning, a song of a predator moving through the dark. A hunter had entered the fold, and its attention was fixed on that tiny, fragile note. The note of the Terminus colony. You could only listen in horror. You waited for the inevitable, the moment when the angry buzz would finally swallow the little chord whole. The colony goes silent. The official announcement came 3 weeks later. A data burst from a long-range probe. Terminus Station had suffered a catastrophic failure. A star flare from its dormant sun, they said. A 1 in a billion event. A tragic, unavoidable accident. The network was flooded with messages of sympathy. A day of mourning was declared. They blame a star flare for the loss. But you know the truth. You had listened to it happen. In your mind, you had a front row seat. You felt the angry buzz arrive at the Kepler Epsilon system. It was not a sudden explosion. It was a methodical, chilling silence. The small, gentle chord of Terminus did not cry out. It did not end in a fiery crash. It simply stopped. One moment, its light harmony was there, a faint but steady part of the void's music. The next, it was gone, extinguished, as if a candle had been snuffed out. The silence it left behind was terrifying. It was a hole in the universe, a place where a song used to be. You know the silence was not empty. The angry buzz lingered there for a time. It pulsed with a kind of satisfaction, a deep, ugly thrum of a beast that had just fed. It was a sound of victory. It was the most horrible sound you had ever heard. It was not the sound of a natural disaster. It was the sound of a murder. You tried to tell them again. You screamed it in the doctor's office. It wasn't a flare, it was the buzz. The buzz ate them. They held you down. They gave you a stronger injection this time. You woke up in a quiet room with soft walls. The diagnosis was updated. Acute paranoia, auditory hallucinations. Your world became very small. Your parents looked at you with pity and fear. The other children avoided you. You were the girl who heard monsters in the dark, a pariah. You retreated further into yourself, into the song, the only place where the truth was real. The angry buzz eventually moved on. It faded back into the deep, resuming its slow hunt. But it had left a scar on the void, a patch of wrongness, a silent scream you could still hear if you focused. You knew it was still out there, and you knew it would be back. You were the only one who knew. You were the only one who was listening. For 5 years, you lived in that quiet room. You charted the monster's progress in your mind. It moved slowly, patiently, from one dead system to another. It seemed to be circling, moving along the edge of human-colonized space. A shark patrolling a reef. Sometimes, other outposts would go silent. A freighter would disappear. The official reasons were always plausible. Reactor malfunctions, navigation errors, pirate attacks. Humanity had grown comfortable in the dark. They had forgotten that some things have teeth. But you remembered, you listened, and you waited. You knew a day would come when they would have no choice but to listen to you. An old admiral takes a chance on you. His name was Kenji Tanaka. He was a relic, a warrior from a forgotten age of expansion. He had seen real combat. He did not trust the quiet of the void. He had lost too many friends to it. He came to your quiet room alone. No doctors, no guards. He sat across from you. His face was a road map of old battles. His eyes were sharp and clear. They saw more than the doctors did. He did not ask about your health. He did not ask if you were hearing things. He just said, "Tell me about the song." And so you did. For the first time, you told someone everything. You described the music of gravity, the notes of planets and the chords of stations. You told him about the wrong note. The angry buzz. The way it had consumed Terminus. The way it was still moving out in the black. He listened without interruption. He did not judge. He did not dismiss. He just nodded slowly. When you were finished, the room was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. His voice was gravelly, like stones tumbling in a slow river. "I've read your file, all of it. I've also read the classified reports from every ship and station that has gone dark in the last 5 years. He leaned forward. "The official stories are lies. We know something is out there. Our long-range sensors see nothing. Our patrols find only wreckage. But the pattern is undeniable. Something is hunting us. And you are the only person who seems to have any idea what it is." His offer was simple and insane. He wanted you to leave the hospital. He wanted you to come with him. He commanded the battle group Vigilance, the last true fleet humanity had. He wanted to give you a ship, not to command, of course, but to listen with. Your new home is the bridge of a warship, the flagship Resolute. It was the biggest thing you had ever touched, a mountain of cold, living metal. When you stepped onto its deck plates, you felt its song immediately, a deep, powerful, and complex chord. It was the sound of a sleeping giant. It was magnificent. The crew stared at you. You were a pale, thin teenager in a hospital gown. Surrounded by uniformed veterans, they whispered. They called you the Admiral's pet psychic, his good luck charm. They thought the old man had finally lost his mind. Let them whisper. They would learn. Admiral Tanaka led you to the center of the bridge, to a single, isolated chair. It was surrounded by conduits and data ports. He called it the Nexus. It was a direct interface with the ship's core systems. "The Resolute has the most advanced sensors ever built," he said. "But they are deaf. You will be their ears." He looked at you, not as a doctor looks at a patient, but as a commander looks at a soldier, a specialist, a weapon. "I am betting the lives of 10,000 people on you," he said softly. "I am betting that what you hear is real. Do not disappoint me." You looked at the old warrior, and for the first time in years, you did not feel alone. You connect with the starship's heart. The technicians were hesitant. They treated you like a fragile piece of glass. They attached silvery wires to your temples. They spoke in low, soothing tones. You felt a prick at the base of your skull. A data port slid into place with a soft click. You closed your eyes. The world exploded. It was not a sound. It was a flood, a tidal wave of pure information. The ship's senses became your senses, 1,000 new ways of hearing the void's song. You felt the faint radiation of a distant pulsar, not as a hum, but as a slow, steady drumbeat. You felt the magnetic field of a rogue planet. It was a low, mournful cello. The ship amplified your gift. It was overwhelming. Your mind, used to a quiet symphony, was suddenly at the center of a galactic orchestra. Every instrument was playing at once. You felt the gravitational pull of every speck of dust in the system, the heat signature of every asteroid, the faint echo of the Admiral's heartbeat through the deck plates. You gasped. It was too much. The universe was shouting at you. You tried to pull back, to shut it down. But the connection held firm. The technicians started to panic. Your vital signs were spiking. The Admiral's voice cut through the chaos. "Steady, child. Ride it, don't fight it. Find the quiet place." His voice was an anchor. You focused on it. You let the storm of data rage around you. You remembered the observatory dome, the quiet place where you first learned to listen. You built that quiet place in your mind, a sanctuary. And slowly, carefully, you began to sort the noise from the music. You learned to filter, to focus. You could tune out the background radiation. You could ignore the chatter of nearby asteroids. You could push the overwhelming life signs of the fleet to the background. It was like learning to see all over again. But this time, you had 1,000,000,000 eyes. Eyes that could see in every spectrum. The Resolute was no longer just a ship. It was your body. Its sensors were your nerve endings. You could feel the vastness of space in a way you never had before. You could taste the solar winds. You could feel the pressure of space-time itself. It was terrifying, and it was beautiful. After a few hours, you opened your eyes. The bridge crew was staring at you in silence. The Admiral stood beside your chair. "Report," he said. His voice was calm, but you could feel the tension in him, the subtle discord in his personal song. You took a breath. "The fleet is a constellation of sounds," you said. Your own voice sounded strange, distant. "The cruiser Valiant has a noisy power conduit on Deck 7. The frigate Stalwart has a micro-fracture in its bow plating. It is whistling a very high F-sharp." The chief engineer of the Stalwart spoke into his communication device. His eyes went wide. He looked at you with a new respect. The Admiral smiled, a small, grim crack in his stony face. "Good," he said. "Very good. Now, find me the wrong note. Find me the monster." You closed your eyes again. You pushed your senses outward, past the fleet, past the local system. You reached out into the deep black. You began to hunt. Your fleet now hunts the unseen enemy. For months, you sailed the silent ocean between stars. The battle group Vigilance was a ghost fleet. They ran with minimal power. They communicated with tight beam lasers. To any conventional sensor, they were invisible, a whisper in the dark. But you could feel them, a chorus of powerful, waiting chords. You followed trails no machine can detect. The monster left a wake, a stain in the music of the void, a lingering dissonance. It was a trail of fear, a residue of silence where life used to be. Old shipping lanes were now graveyards. Trade outposts were tombs. You could feel the echoes of their final, silent screams. The crew learned to trust you. At first, they called you the Oracle. It was not always a compliment. But after you navigated them through an unmapped asteroid field by feeling the gravity wells, the name stuck, and the tone changed. It became a name of respect. You were their compass, their eyes in a universe without light. The Admiral was your shadow. He spent most of his time on the bridge. Standing near your Nexus chair, he would ask you questions, not about data or tactics, but about the song. What did a black hole sound like? You told him it didn't have a sound. It was the absence of sound. A perfect, terrifying quiet. A hole where the music stopped. He asked you about the monster. You tried to explain its song. It's not just one note, you told him. It's complex. There's a high, thin screech of hunger and a deep, pulsing rhythm of something ancient, something patient. It doesn't move like our ships. It doesn't push through space. It feels like it unfolds. The fleet's star science experts were baffled. They had no theory for a drive that worked like that. No model for a ship that left no heat, no radiation, no trace at all, except for the one you could hear. The ugly, wrong note in the symphony of the cosmos. So they followed you, the blind leading the blind, guided only by a song of wrongness. You learned to enjoy the small things. The mess chief discovered you liked sweet tea. He made sure a warm mug was always waiting for you when you came out of trance. The lead technician showed you how to play chess on an old board. She said it was good to think about something other than the void. These small kindnesses were grace notes in the growing tension, a reminder of what you were fighting for. The trail was getting warmer. The echoes of silence were fresher. The monster's song was growing louder. A constant low thrum at the edge of your perception. It was no longer circling the edges of human space. It was moving inward, toward the core worlds, toward home. The hunt was becoming a race. You feel the enemy waiting in ambush. It happened in the Tenebrous Nebula, a roiling cloud of black dust and cold gas. A perfect place to hide a fleet, a perfect place to die. The fleet's sensors were useless in the thick dust. They were flying completely blind, relying only on you. The monster's song was loud here. The nebula seemed to amplify it, distort it. The angry buzz was everywhere. It was a confusing, disorienting shriek. But as you pushed your senses deeper, you felt something else. A subtle harmony within the dissonance. It was a trap. The main buzz, the loud, obvious one, was a lure. It was a fake, a decoy. The real threat was silent. It was hiding. You could feel it holding its breath. A cluster of sharp, wicked notes, coiled and waiting, spread out in a classic pincer formation, right across your path. Stop, you whispered. Your voice was hoarse. The single word echoed across the quiet bridge. The navigator's hands froze above his console. The Admiral was at your side instantly. "What is it, Oracle?" he asked. His voice was low, urgent. "It's a trap," you said, your eyes still closed. "They know we're here. They're waiting for us. The loud noise is a decoy. The real fleet is everywhere, ahead of us, to the sides. They are waiting for us to enter the killing box." A cold silence fell over the bridge. The crew looked at each other. Their lives hung on the words of a girl in a chair. Your warning allows the fleet to survive. Admiral Tanaka did not hesitate. He did not question. He trusted you. "All ships, full stop," he commanded. "Execute reverse thrust. Back out of the nebula. Now." Alarms blared. The deck plates of the Resolute shuddered as its massive engines fired in reverse. The enemy was patient. For a full hour, they did not move. They held their positions. They waited in perfect silence, thinking you were still inching forward. Then, They must have realized their prey was escaping. The trap was sprung. On the main view screen, which was just a tactical display of what you described, the ambush appeared. Dozens of hostile signatures. Materializing from the dust, they fired into the empty space where your fleet would have been. Lances of pure energy tore through the nebula. They crisscrossed in a deadly web. A web meant for you. The bridge crew let out a collective, shaky breath. They would have been vaporized. They would have never seen it coming. You had saved them all. The Admiral put a hand on your shoulder. It was a gesture of immense gratitude, of profound trust. "Get us out of here, Oracle," he said. "Take us home the long way around." You guided them through the nebula's outer arms, weaving a path through the dust clouds. You kept the silent hunters on your scopes. They were fast, unbelievably agile. Their ships were blades of black metal. They made no sound you could recognize as propulsion. They just moved, slicing through space with a terrible grace. You watched them search for you. A frantic, angry pattern. Their song had changed. The patient thrum was gone, replaced by a screech of frustration, of fury. You had outsmarted them. You had seen the unseen. For the first time, you felt a flicker of something other than fear. You felt hope. You had made the monster bleed, and you realized you could do it again.